He sagt the Hilge Gemara. Sagt the Hilge Mishnah. Ha'omer tnu get ze l'ishti. And of course, we learned this Mishnah already, but we're going to learn it again more be'in. Ha'omer tnu get ze l'ishti. Someone said, give this get to my wife. This is where Mati's kasha was. Remember, you had a kasha Rashi? How could it be halfway, right? If you hold it, you can't back out. So, the shliach was already kind of the star shikha for the Evid. So how could you say that if he dies, it doesn't work? So Aimer tenu gets ishti star shikha zela abdi umeis, and then he dies. Lo yitnu liyachim. You shouldn't give it. And Rashi back there explained that even though once you give the get over, we say zachin adu shlei b'fanav, and the person who was kind of the get on behalf of the Ebed now makes it that the Adon cannot back out. Nevertheless, if the Adon dies, then lo yitnu lachem isa. So matiyach mimanavshech, right? If it's considered as if the Ebed was kind of, so the Ebed should be free. What's the difference if afterwards the Adon dies? If not, no. And that's the kasha that Tosfos asked. But we sort of remain shver on Rashi. To new mana is ploying you mace. But if someone gave him a ton to somebody that he asked somebody to be zoiche in for him, then yitnu lachem. So there you say that the shliach was zoiche in it on behalf of the recipient. So look at Rashi here. It seems like Rashi made a complete turnaround because of Mati's kasha. Because Rashi says, Haimer tnu get zel ishti is actually a question of whether or not you're goyres towards zeh. Rashi says garsinan you're goyres to zeh. V'lo garsinan 10. It's a little bit difficult the 10 here because the question is if you're goyres zeh or not. That's really what the shaila is. Let me see if the Tziyanim speak about it. It's an aleph, right? 10 get zeh, right? It's the question of the zeh. So we're goyres towards zeh, meaning he's actually handing a actual star to somebody, and he's not just telling him to write a star on his behalf. Therefore, so the Balt, I'm sorry, so I'm saying it wrong. Rashi is not Gerzeh. Meaning, you didn't actually give a star to the shliach. No, the Adon didn't give a star to the shliach while the Adon was alive. Because if the Adon would have given the star shliach while he was alive, the Eved would have been free right away. And that's why that's why the Chum don't argue here. That's why the Chachamim don't argue. But if he would have actually given a get, then the Chachamim who hold he is Meshocher. So you see, Rashi holds that the moment the shliach would get the get, the Eved would be completely Meshocher, unlike what Rashi said last time. Okay, gewaltig. Just as an aside, I did see Mefarshim that try to explain Rashi and said that Shichrer, the question was to Rashi is if it cannot be Chayzer, so that means the Shichrer was Chal, so then even if the Adon dies, why isn't Eved Meshucher? So I saw some Mefarshim that say that there's two parts to Shichrer. There's the monistic part, where I'm giving up the Eved, but there's also the Ruchnistic part, which means that this Eved now becomes a full-fledged Jew. And now he's not allowed to marry a Shivcha, he's not allowed to marry a Bas Yisrael. That only comes with the Messiah itself. That's what some people learn. I'm Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Shmuel Bar Marsa Mishmei Derav. V'hu shetzavurin u'munachun bekeren zavis. When do you say that Tnu Mana Ish Ploni Umeis Yitnu Lachamisa? You didn't give him a star. You didn't give anything. You just told somebody, give this money to Pliny. That only works if the actual money is be'en right there. As Rashi says, money de katani masnisin, that merely me commanding somebody to give it to Pliny, that's a Kinyan. That's b'tzvurin umunachon hamois maskinan. That's when there's actually money there. I'm not just being mechayiv myself to give money. There's actual physical coins that I'm referring to. V'yamar manazeh tenu leploni. Practically more b'may askinon. This that Rav Yitzchak Bar Shmuel Bar Marsha said in the name of Rav. So this that Rav said that it only works. But that's probably why Rav had to make it clear that there were actual things. That's a good point. That's if it would have said that, Rav wouldn't have had to point it out. It's a good horror. Rav had to point it out because it doesn't say that. What exactly is the case here? If we're talking about someone who's healthy, which means he's subject to normal rules of Kinyan, and Rashi says machmas bari. So the halacha is the metalton yochel lachseboy achi himshach. If I say take this until there's an actual Kinyan made, I could be chayzer because it's only once the Kinyan is made that the deal is irrevocable. And if this man dies, his child who yarshened him can also be chayzer until the Kinyan is made. Aliba, the man, the less le mitzvah l'kayim dibra emes. If you don't hold that there's a mitzvah to l'kayim dibra emes, even though he said it when he was a bari. Because if he holds mitzvah l'kayim dibra emes, then his son, his Yorish, would have to fulfill his will anyway. So what does it help if it's piled up? Halei Moshe, there was no Kinyan made. So therefore, let's try Ela b'shchiv mera. Let's say speaking about a shchiv mera, and we know that a shchiv mera that says something, you're Mekayim his words, because we don't want him to be frustrated and upset and that could damage him. So Frek Gemara, then my ear tzaburin ki ain't tzaburin nami. The fact that divrei shchivra kiksuvim chumsurin means a shchivra could say, I want you to give $100 of my nechasim leploini. Even if it's not there, there's no specific money he's referring to, it's still a chayvus. So why in the world would you need tzur? The kaimelon, the divrei shchivra kiksuvim chumsurin dami. And of course, there are conditions, as you can see, in Tosfos. But since I came late, we got to go weiter. Really, it's speaking about a bari. So how does this Kinyan work? There was no Kinyan made. Why is it irrevocable? So now we're going to be introduced to a new Kinyan. Uchad Rav Huna Amar Rav. Like Rav Huna said in the name of Rav, our same Rav. Amar Rav Huna Amar Rav. Manali biyatra. What if I go over to Chaim? Chaim, you owe me $100. And I say, Tneu loy leploini. And Chaim, you know that $100 that you owe me, don't give it to me. Give it to Mati. The Mamit Shloshton. I'm there, Mati's there, and Chaim's there. We're all there together. The Lach is Kana. That is a Kinyan. Zok Rashi, B'Mamit Shloshton Kana. L'kamon the fires time. And the Gemara is going to explain how this works. But in order for it to work, Utzburin Ba'inon. There, the money has to be right there. The Savar Rab Zvid, because Rab Zvid holds, like Amar Rav Kana, Ella B'Pikadoin, the Kanilik Alecha de Isay. So I actually said it wrong. I said, Chaim, you owe me money, but that's not the case. Chaim, you have a lamp of mine. You have a lamp. It's in your living room that I lent to you. I want you to give that lamp to Mati. And all three of us are there. That's going to be a Kinyan. Rav Papa Amar, and that explains why it has to be Tzavurin. It has to be Tzavurin in order for the Kinyan to have worked. Rav Papa Amar, no, we're going to say it's speaking about a Shchiv Merah. And it's not invoking this new Kinyan environment for Shloshton. Rather, it's working with the Matna Shchiv Merah properties. Ucheidich the Rab, the Amar Rab, Shchiv Merah Amar Tenu Mana Leploini Minichasai. Therefore, Minichasai Mana Zeh Noisnin. If he so in a case where he didn't just say, in a case where he said Tenu Mana Leploini. So if he said Tnu Mana Zeh Leploini, then Noisnin. Mana Stam a Noisnin. So even by a Matna Shchivmera, he has to specify the Mana that he's referring to. Why does he have to specify the Mana that he's referring to? Because Shema Mana Kaver Ka'amar. Maybe he's referring to a Mana, Rashi says, Yesh Loi Bekarka, but who the other? Maybe he hid away some Mana, and that was the Mana that he was referring to. So therefore, we don't transfer any money that he has. So if he says Mana Zeh, well, then we know it's this mana that he wants transferred. If he says mana stam, then we won't be able to transfer any money. The fact is we don't paskin like that, and when the Shrivmer says give a mana lepoini, it doesn't matter if it's there or if it's not. But akoponim, according to Rav Papa will understand Rab, who said it was tzuburin, it's Rab going according to the other Rab who said that matna Shrivmer doesn't work unless the money's there. Even though we don't paskin like that, Rav Papa is saying maybe Rab's comment earlier is following Rab's halacha that a shchivmara also has to specify. Now the Gemara wants to know, Rav Papa could have explained it that it's working with a ma'amid shloshton de Kinyan, like Rav Huna said. I think it's Rav Zeir who said, and like Rav Zid said, and Rav Zid could have explained it like Rav Papa. There's the Matna Shchivmara. The Gemara wants to know why did each one say not like the other. Rav Papa, my time Elohim Rav Zid. Why didn't Rav Papa like this Kinyan of Ma'amid Shloshton? Zok Gemara because Rav Papa, he Amar Rav, when Rav said this halacha of Ma'amid Shloshton, Loishna b'milva, Loishna b'pikadon. It applies by milva as well. By definition, a milva is not in front of us. A pikadon is tzuburin. You have the pikadon in your house. You have the lamp on your table. A milva, the money's nowhere. I lent you the money. There's chayvus, and it would even work there. So therefore, if it's working with the king of Ma'amid Shloshton, according to Rav Papa, it wouldn't have needed to be tzuburin. So it would still work. My time Rav Papa. Why didn't Rav Zvid learn that Rav is speaking about a matna shchivmara, and therefore the Mishnah is speaking of a matna shchivmara? Dr. Gemara, because loy misoik masnisin b'shchivmara. Rav Zvid holds that our Mishnah cannot possibly be explained where it's referring to a shchivmara. Mimai, how can I be medayik from the Mishnah that it cannot be referring to a shchivmara? Midakatani. It says in the Mishnah, ha'omer tnu get zela ishti, or a shtar shikr zelavdi, umeis, lo yitnu la'achamisa. So, Zok Gemara, that's to be medayik this Mishnah. Haima de meis. The only reason why it's lo yitnu la'achamisa is because the person died. As Rashi says, Haima de meis, who the lo yitnu, the ein get la'achamisa. Hamachayim, but in this very same case, if he was alive still, noisnin, you would still give the get, and as Rashi says, su limluchebe. You don't have to ask him, do you want this? He was mamana them. It's a perfect minu shlichus. So let's think about this. Time adamar tnu. The Lashon HaMishnah is he said tnu gets ela avdi. Tnu gets ela ishti. So only if he said tnu would you have given it once if he's still alive. Haloi amar tnu. Had he not said tnu, ein noishnu, you would not have given it. But the problem is, shchivmara afagav lo yamar tnu noishnu. But by a shchivmara, even if he didn't say the word tnu, you would still give the get. So therefore, it's impossible that our Mishnah is speaking about a shchivmara, because our Mishnah seems to indicate that in order for it to work b'chaim, he would have had to say tnu, and a shchivmara would never have had to say tnu. How do I know that a shchivmara does not have to say tnu? If someone is being taken out and changed to be killed by the king, V'amar, and he quickly said he didn't want his wife to fall yibum. V'amar kisvu get leishti, but he didn't say kisvu tnu get leishti. He didn't say all of the syntax that he needed to say, but naturally he's a little bit under pressure. It's possible that he didn't speak exactly as clear as he was supposed to. Then hareli yichtavu v'yitu, because we know that's what we want. That's what he really wants. No, it's not Kedusha Shemara. So this is not working with Matna Shchivmara. This halacha that we're learning is, since we know he meant that, even though he didn't say it, but he's in a very stressed situation, that it's possible that he might not use the exact proper nusach, we assume he did. Chazru loymar, then they extended that to someone who's nervous that he's missing a flight. Af hamafarish vayotze b'shayara, if he's rushed to go out in the shayara. Rab Shimon Shazuri is the one who introduces the Matna Shchivmara. Rab Shimon Shazuri Amar Af Hamasukin. So it's only Rab Shimon Shazuri who says this halacha of a Matna Shchivmara. But we know, even if he didn't say tnu, it would work according to Rab Shimon Shazuri, And our Mishnah says it only works if you said tnu, and therefore our Mishnah cannot possibly be referring to a case of a shchiv mara. Let's see Rashi. If all he did was kisvu, a regular healthy man, loy have a tali tana the besnisin, the tana wouldn't have said taima de loyitnu mishamisa. The reason why it was loyitnu is not because he died. Even if he was alive, you couldn't, because he didn't command it properly. He has to say the word tnu. Midaloika amar, midaloika tani. If the Mishnah wanted to speak about a shchivera, the Lashon Mishnah would have been ha'omer kitzu get leishti umeis loyitnu lachamisa. But that's not what the Mishnah said. The Mishnah said that he said kisvu utanu. Shemamina yamar hachi afilu machayim nami lo yavina. V'im fact gemar v'im shchivera abagav lo yamar tnu ela kitzu yahavinon kerav Shimon Shazuri. Hayot b'koiler is like harei. Why? Because we say he means to make a shliach. Why? He's not exactly of clear mind. He's in a stickle, stressed out situation. He didn't complete his sentence. Surely he meant to say kisvu tnu. So it's the Shimon Shazuri who told us the loch of shchiv mara. Zok to Gemara, Maskif lo Ravashi. Uban name alone, the Masnisin of Reb Shimon Shazuri. Reb Shimon Shazuri is the one who says that there's a halacha of shchiv mara. Who said that our Mishnah is going according to Reb Shimon Shazuri? Maybe our Mishnah is going according to Rabbanan. So what was Rav Zvid's whole taina? Why couldn't say like our Papa? Because if it was a shchivera, you wouldn't have to say tnu. According to everybody else who argues with Reb Shimon Shazuri, a shchivera also has to say tnu. So maybe in fact our Mishnah is speaking about matna shchivera, and you have to say tnu, and it has to be tzvur. So you don't really have such a good reason why you refuse to say that the Mishnah is speaking about a shchivera. But Reb Zvid's svar is, I guess he didn't want to say that the Mishnah is not going like Reb Shimon Shazuri. Reb Zvid wanted to say that the Mishnah was going like Reb Shimon Shazuri. So now basically we learned something pretty simple. The Mishnah, Rav said on our Mishnah, Rav said a chiddush on our Mishnah. It has to be speaking by tzuvurin, and there's two reasons why it would be required to have tzuvurin. Either because Rav holds that it's matna shchivera, and even the matna shchivera, we need to define what he's giving, so it has to be tzuvurin, or it's working, like Rav Zvid said, with the Kinyan of Maimet Shlosh. Now we're going to analyze a little bit, to learn a little bit more about how this Kinyan of Maimet Shlosh works. Gufa, Amar Avuna Marav, Mana Libiyotcha. Someone tells his friend, you have a mana of mine. Taneu loy leploini, give it to a third party, and he said it b'maimet shloshton. All three of them were there. Kana, that's a full kinyan. No, it doesn't have to be literally, but it has to be in existence in his possession. Okay. Zog to Gemara, Amarava, Rava said, Nistaver milfe the Rav, Nistama this halacha of Maimet Shloshton Kinyan is bipikadon, where it's there. So bipikadon doesn't have to literally mean that it's in his hand, but it means it's in his possession, it's in existence. Aval b'milva, where it's merely a hischayvus, loy, not. Valakim Amarav, but the Gemara is saying with the Lashon Shvua, Rav said afilu b'milva. Rav said this Maimet Shloshton works even b'milva. So I could even go over to somebody who owes me money and say, Yankel, you owe me $100. Give that money to Beryl. If all three guys are there, that's a perfect kinyan. Itmar Nami, we learned as well. As chayvus, because mivel lo hitzonitna. Not this moment. There is no moment to be. As chayvus, I can imagine. I can't get geld anymore. All I have is that you owe me money. I can't get geld. So I can make this chayvus, right? So the question is, does this kinyan ma'avish shloshim work for his chayvus? That's exactly what the machlokes is. Exactly. So Amar Shmuel, Amar Shmuel played the Levi, Milva Libi Hotcha, Shendei Olay Laplaidi, and it was b'mamet shloshtan. Hana Yerkaina. So that's like the Beholakim Amarav, I feel the milva. The time of my, why, how does it work? How does my time of a milva kana halasa be'enin delakanya? In fact, Rashi explains the Gemara's kasha is there's nothing here to be kind exactly how does it work? Amar Amemar, and this is an interesting mechanics. Nazika Omer loy b'shas matan mois. It's as if when the Malva gave the loiva, so when Reuben gave Shimon the $100, at the time that Shimon accepted the $100, Shimon, through the accepting of the $100, so there was a Ma'aseh Kinyan there, he said, or it's as if he said, Shivad naloch u'ledidoch u'lechol da'osim machmasa. I'm being mishabed myself, not only to you, but anybody who comes in your place. So it's like a magical Kinyan, because Lemafreya back then he already accepted upon himself the hischayvus, and there he could be mekayim upon himself in the schayvus because he's taking money. He was mekabel upon himself in the schayvus, not only to the actual malva, but also anybody who the malva assigns the debt to. Zokt Rashi, Nasuk loivel malva b'shas matan mois dehalva mishabadna mehashta l'chol man da'asim machmaseh. I'm sorry. I'm not sure how Shibud Rav Nosson works. I'm not sure how Shibud Rav Nosson works because by Shibud Rav Nosson, I'm not wanting you to pay the other guy. I'd rather you pay me. Shibud Rav Nosson says that my creditor can go collect my debts, even though I didn't want him to. I want to collect. I don't want to pay him. Right. There's a Kinyan. So but I'm not sure if it works this way. Maybe he does. I don't know. When you say to the Yolaploini, the Apetlasa, Igloi Milsa, the Mishas Matan Mois Ishtabedle. Since we know he was makabel upon himself to be Mishabed to anyone who's going to come in place of the Malva, it turns out that what we're doing later is merely showing us who the Loiva was Mishabed himself to during the actual loan. Amalei Rabashi La Meimer. So Zok Rabashi Meimer, we have a problem with that. What if Apetlasa, I tell my loiva, Beryl, I want you to give it to Chaim, but Chaim wasn't born. Chaim wasn't born during the Halvah. So how could you be mishabed yourself to Chaim b'shas Halvah if Chaim wasn't even there? Hachanami d'loikani, are you going to say that it would not work? What do we borrow it after? There was no loan. The third party I'm giving it to him as a gift. There was no loan. Why are you assuming that I owe him? I just want to give him a gift. Yeah. It's not relevant. That's not relevant. Right? So, for example, Gemara, the fiddle Reb Meir, the Amar Adam Makna Davar Shaloi Bala Olam, even though Reb Meir holds that the object that you're being makna, you could be makna today, even though it's not here today. But even Reb Meir holds Hanamili Lid Davar Sheyeshnei Ba'olam. You could only give something to somebody who's in existence. Aval Davar She'eina Ba'olam, but someone who's not in existence, such as this child at the time of the Alva who wasn't even born yet, loy. So there's no way that this could possibly work. Zok Telegarashi, Hitnim Alvazul in Nailodim, Shazam Kabel Noilad, the person who I want to assign the Alva to was only born after the Alva. Hakanami the Lakani, the Kivin the Taima, Mishum Shibuda, the Kabbalah Leloiva B'Shas Halva, Lishtabudi Lahai Dasim Achmaslihu, since the whole explanation of why he owes the money to the third party is only because that was his original, his chaybus, when he accepted the original loan, but this person who we want him to give the money to wasn't around at that time to even become a shubatu, Lakani, it shouldn't work. Someone says, I'm going to sell you the fruits that my decal will grow. They haven't grown yet. Or I set up a net, whatever fish gets caught in the net, I'm going to be makna to you. But Mary holds you can be makna something even though it's not here yet. But he himself holds, he's the most liberal with these types of kinyonim, yet even he holds you cannot be makna to someone who's not there yet. So So how are you going to explain how this Kinyan Ma'abish Lashon works? Elamar Bashi, it's a brand new shibud. But in order for the loiva to become a shubid, it's like Khalifin, he's got to get something in return. And in lieu of that I got in return, I'm a shabbat myself. Dr. Gemara, he's getting something now. Because someone would have had to say that. The Gemara seems to assume that Ma'amish Lashon works all the time. So Zok to Gemara, a new one. The Haki the Kamishtani lay, Bein Milvel Yishana li Milvel Chadosha. What happened over here? Chaim owes me money for 5 years. I'm not collecting from him. So what do? I tell Chaim, you know what? Don't pay me, pay Levi, right? Now, Chaim could tell Levi, I just came to you. Give me a couple of weeks. I'll come up with the money. It allows you now to reset the payback date because you could buy some time. I just started owing you the money. But Mila Simon, for 5 years I owe him. I feel uncomfortable. Now I can start fresh again. We understand that that sentiment. But I know the Kamishtani lay ben Milva Yeshana Milva Chadosha. That I know that he can reset the payback date. That I know he's getting now. Gomar u'mishabed nafshe. Zokt Rashi, but he know the Kamishtani haMilva lagabe haMilva Yeshana Milva Chadosha. The Noich leLitchash haPiroyin. Mean Zman Orach. Now he has an opportunity to push it off again. Gomar hashto b'shas amira u'mishabed nafshe b'leiv shalom lahai. Now he's dislodging, disconnecting his chayvis from the original malva, and he's connecting it to a new malva. Amar Rav Huna Mar Pareder Rav Nechemel Rav Ashi Elamayata Kakoin Hanan Devei Bar El Yoshev. What about if who's the third party who's receiving the funds? Bei Bar El Yoshev, who are tough people, and the moment you owe them money, right away the kapti they'll lock you up with shakli altar. You definitely don't have the hahiyano with what you're going to be mechayev to them, because they're not going to give you a moment to repay the loan. Hachanami d'lekani, are you going to say that it doesn't work in that case? As Rashi says, he was a tough guy. Like who? They don't wait right away. They break your kneecaps the moment you owe them money and you don't pay them. Are you going to say that it's not going to work there? And if you're going to say hachanami, which is what Moti really asked earlier, maybe it doesn't work for Ketanim. So now your rule that Abetlasa works is now needs a whole long list of exclusions with it. It'll have to come with the disclaimer that every medicine comes with. Doesn't work here, it doesn't work there, and that's not how we work. Ella, Amamar Zutra, Hanit Klasmili, the following 3 things. And now we already know what the subject of tomorrow's Gemara is. There's 3 things that are halacha like that, and we don't even understand the reason. Chadaha, and we'll stop here with the ha. Rashi, ki ilu kibla Moshe halacha misinai, shein tzarich losas batam. We don't have the reason. We don't have the reason how Apeitlasa works. Zokt Toisvis, ki hilchos b'taima, pirish mashamoya liknos. That it helps. Aval tam yesh lama tiknu chachamim. So why they wanted it to work, that makes a lot of sense, which Toisvis will share. But the mechanics of how it works, that we don't understand. It's a tircha to make actual kinyanim. They have to pull now a shmata to this. So they wanted it to be easy to create transactions. And that's why they did it. So we might not understand the mechanics of how it works, but rest assured that it works just fine. Okay, we have 1 minute left. I wanted to learn some of the Tosfos in, because there's so much information on all these halachas we learned about Ma'amishlotan, Matneshchivera. There's so many things that we learned. So I wanted to at least try to chap one Tosfos. The first Tosfos was the Amit Nuget. So Igar Sin and 10 get Zeh. So that's part of what we looked at in the Rashi. Is there an actual get that I'm instructing you to give, or am I generally instructing you to write a get for my wife? So Igar Sin and 10 get Zeh. Then also Masnizin Reb Meir Dafka. Then the Mishnah is only like Reb Meir, because it's only Reb Meir who holds that it's a choy for the Eved, going back to what Tosfos' opinion was before. Inami, Afilu Karabanon, maybe you could even go according to Rabbanon. So the problem over here is if it's a schus for the Eved to go free, so how could the Rabbanan hold that lo yitnu lachamisa? The moment the Eved takes that, the moment the shliach takes that star, right away the Eved should go free. I didn't actually hand the get to the shliach. I point to the star that's sitting on the table, and I tell him, and I tell you to give it. So Tosfos says, the balt, I didn't actually hand it to you. You're not going to be zoiching it right away. Just because I commanded you to take it, you're not going to be zoiching it until you actually pick it up or until I actually hand it to you. And that's why lo yitnu lachamisa. So that's one explanation as to why it wouldn't have worked. Inami not alter, or maybe he took it right away even before the Noisin died. The Eved was still not zoicha. With Neumar, how could you possibly explain why the Eved wouldn't be zoicha if this fellow took the get? The Neumar deloy amri and ten kisri. Maybe you don't say ten kisri ela kishamoish ela shliach miyad liyad. So that's another chiddush. That tain is kisri, but tain is only kisri if it's accompanied by the motion of the owner actually physically handing it to the shliach. But if I just say tain and you take it on your own, there's no tain kisri. And from the fact that it says get zeh in the Mishnah, we learn the alpha gav should get pe'en, even though the get is right here. And technically he could have given it right now because it was ready to go at the moment that the Adon appointed the shliach. And it's already, the process already started because the get was written and it was signed and the command to give it was given. Nevertheless, don't complete it. Then get lachamisa. Okay, we'll stop here. There was so much more shmak to learn, but I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that I came late. I'm sorry. Today? Shkoyach. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. I got up to Chada Ha, which is about 8 lines down on Yudal Amar Aleph. We're about to list off 3 things that we don't understand how it works, but nevertheless,